Well, hello again. This is Professor Kent Lee from Pugyong National University in Busan, Korea. Today we're going to talk about problems in writing. If you're a college student or graduate student, you might have problems with writing, getting started with writing and completing your writing assignments. In a previous video, we talked about the writing process and reflecting on your writing process. We kind of mentioned problems that you might have, and we're going to discuss that more in detail today. So some problems you might encounter. Procrastination. This means putting something off. You get an assignment and you think, okay, I'll start on this. But for some reason, maybe you're anxious or whatever, you lack confidence and you just keep putting it off, or you're just not interested in it. And you keep putting it off, and then suddenly it's 11 o'clock the night before it's due, and you think, oh no, I've got an assignment due tomorrow. I better get started. And you start on it late, you stay up all night, and the finished product is really poor quality. Or you're trying to write, and you maybe have writer's block. So you get this block, and you just can't write. You spent 2 hours trying to write something, you've got a title, and you've got a beginning sentence, and that's all you've got. And these might go hand in hand, and you're trying to write something, and you think, oh, I'll just take a break, I'll go to YouTube and watch maybe a BTS video, and you see all these recommended videos on the side, and then 4 hours later, you're watching a video on how to communicate with penguins, or something like that. Well, is it because you're lazy? No, probably not. You're probably not lazy. It's just that there are some psychological reasons to understand. And then there are second language issues involved. And I'll probably talk about that in another video. Actually, it's worth coming back to. When you're writing and you're having difficulties, the difficulties could come from several sources. Could be informational focus, in terms of the focus of the paper, or it could be more affective. Affective is a term that refers to your long-term psychological state, your overall mood, emotions, feelings, kind of long-term. So not at the moment, but long-term. Are you positive? Are you confident? When it comes to writing or in general, or such. Affective, kind of long-term, emotional, psychological issues that can get in the way. And we're going to talk about those particularly in this video. Motivation issues, problems with self-efficacy. Self-efficacy means your confidence in your ability to learn a specific task or subject area, or to improve in a particular area. So self-confidence is your overall self-confidence, but efficacy is your sense of your ability to actually accomplish something or to improve in a specific area of learning or specific task, in terms of, say, writing, or improving your English speaking fluency, or your English vocabulary, or your business negotiating skills, or your classroom teaching ability, or something like that. That's efficacy for a specific task. And we'll talk about avoidance and other related things too a little bit. So first of all, let's talk about some of the simpler problems when you get stuck with writing. A lot of people have these, even if people who are writing in their first language, like English native speakers, college students in the U.S. writing a paper. They sometimes get stuck because they've got too much information, or they've chosen an overly broad topic. Let's say the professor assigns you a particular paper topic, and the professor maybe doesn't intend you to write about the entire topic, when it's a topic that actually could be covered in a whole book. So you may have defined your topic too broadly, too generally, and so it's something you can't really write a single essay about. It would be a book length subject. So you're struggling with writing your paper because your topic is too broad. It's kind of grasping at jello because it's too broad and you can't get a grasp on anything specific you can write about. You're your mind, your focus is all over the place because you haven't focused your topic well enough. So you can't think, well, where am I going with this? You don't really have like a rudder. Rudder is like the surface in the back of a plane that controls the direction of the plane. There's no rudder. There's no clear focus or direction to guide you. And so you may need to do some of the pre-writing techniques that we talked about before to help identify a more specific topic. Maybe you've chosen an overly narrow scope. You've chosen a topic that's just too narrow, too specific, and you don't know what to do with it. You don't know where to go. So either you need to do some more reading, find some more information at the library or online, so you can write intelligently about a very specific topic, or you need to adjust your topic, the scope of your paper a little bit. So for these kinds of informational problems, and for some of the other problems you're having writer's block or procrastination, immediate solutions, short-term solutions might be just practicing more pre-writing techniques. Because there's free writing, you just write out whatever words and phrases that come to your mind without worrying about what the professor thinks. You're not concerned about the final product. Just get some ideas on paper, then you can organize them. You can engage in social brainstorming, join a group of friends, and just brainstorm ideas verbally aloud. Then you can use you've got this mess of notes you've gotten from your pre-writing exercise. You can then use mind maps or graphical organizers to organize them, or to generate ideas to begin with, and then finally outlining. So for example, if your topic is too broad or too narrow, engage in some of these pre-writing techniques to maybe adjust your topic, to identify, okay, in all this mess of notes, here's something I can do. This is something I can imagine doing for a paper. So try a combination of different pre-writing techniques in order to generate better ideas for your main paper topic and the main points of your paper and what you're going to do in your paper. Join a study group where you can not only engage in social brainstorming, but also get some help with some guidance with kind of formulating the general outline of your paper. Say, what do you think of this outline? Get some feedback from other people. When you've got a first draft, share your drafts and do what's called peer editing or peer review. You kind of share your drafts and say, hey, what do you think of this? You do these with each other. You trade papers in your study group, give each other some feedback. That's peer editing. It's a very helpful strategy. Planning out your task. So plan carefully after you've got maybe an outline. Plan carefully, and again, allow some room for breaks or when things don't go quite according to plan. But kind of imagine a general plan, like by tomorrow night I'm going to have this much done. By the next night I'm going to do the next section of the paper, and so on. Planning and visualizing. Okay, visualizing yourself, sitting down and writing, or reading, finding good sources, reading good sources to help you get ideas, and doing the specific things that you should do in order to actually successfully finish the project. So visualizing, I don't mean anything mystical. I just mean imagining the specific steps that you need to do in order to accomplish your task. Imagine yourself, it's sort of like a sort of planning, visually planning out what you're going to do and how you're going to do it successfully. That's basically what visualizing is. It's sort of a visual planning and imagining what you need to do this successfully. Take breaks from time to time. Don't procrastinate, but take breaks occasionally, especially if you're doing this in a second language. Your brain is going to get really tired. So take breaks, whether it's meditating or hiking, taking a walk, or just switching to a different homework assignment. And while you're working on something else, doing something else, in the back of your mind, your brain can be kind of working on your writing task, the first task. And when you come back to it, your brain is kind of more fresh and maybe has some new ideas or new perspectives. Longer term solutions, reflect on your writing process. As we discussed in the previous video, Think about your writing process and whether it's effective. Is it working for you? Do you need to try more pre-writing techniques? Do you need to join a study group, do some peer editing with friends? What's working? What's not working for you? What are the good things about your writing process? What are weaknesses? What are things that you can improve? Then reflect on yourself and sources of psychological blocks, affective issues. So particularly if you have regular problems with procrastination or writer's block, and it's not due to the informational problems that we talked about earlier necessarily. What are the sources? What are these affective blocks? Where are they coming from? You need to reflect on this and think back about, for example, your past. Have you had bad experiences with the subject, with classes, with teachers? Have teachers in your past in this area, like language classes, writing classes, have previous teachers or classes discouraged you? Did some teachers treat you unfairly in a way that discouraged you? Did parents or other people give you too much stress or pressure? Maybe teachers, schools, parents, culture or society have pushed you too hard and use pressure and stress to make you study. And so when you try to do writing tasks, it for you is another source of pressure and stress. You just feel pressure and stress because of this assignment. So think about whether you had some bad experiences in your past that discouraged you, that made you feel bad, that hurt your self-esteem, that gave you some bad experiences. This could include just a lot of pressure to perform well, performance anxiety. So when you have performance anxiety, it's maybe because in the past people pushed you too hard to study. You have to get an A in this class, and if you don't, people are going to think that you're dumb. So with performance anxiety, you're worried about your performance, and maybe you're worried about what other people think of you. So your concern is not, am I going to learn something and improve myself? You're worried about how you look in front of others or how you view yourself. It's performance anxiety, and that can be crippling, very harmful. You're worried about what other people think of you. You're worried about what people will think of yourself. You're worried about what your friends will think of you, your professor, your teacher, your family members. And that, along with that, social comparison can have similar effects. Social comparison is when people compare you to others. And this can be very harmful to your self-esteem. Again, parents might mean well, but they do sometimes things in a very unwise way. Maybe parents or teachers said to you, "Oh, your brother was really good at English. What's wrong with you?" Or, "You only got an A? Well, how many people got an A plus in the class on this assignment? Well, why didn't you get an A plus?" And that's very harmful, a very harmful thing to do to kids. Because it makes you feel bad because you're not perfect. Not everyone can get an A plus, and your sense of value and worth shouldn't be based on an A plus in one class or one assignment. In some Asian cultures, like in Korea, there's this thing called umchin-a, where parents compare you to their neighbor kids and say, "Oh, the neighbor kid got into Harvard. What about you? Neighbor kid got into Seoul National University. Why didn't you?" This is very harmful to kids' self-esteem. Social comparison can hurt your self-esteem, your sense of efficacy, and cause things like performance anxiety and make you feel stressed. If you've had like bad experiences with teachers or with pressure and stress, you need to isolate those and just block those out of your mind, or at least identify them, reflect on yourself, identify them, talk through them with somebody, and try to either block those out of your mind or Think more healthily about your motivation, as we'll get to in a minute. In serious cases, this leads to avoidance strategies. It's possible you are procrastinating because part of your mind is worried about doing poorly on the assignment. And so your mind is kind of saying, don't do it. It's just going to make you feel dumb. Let's do something else. Let's watch YouTube. It might cause you to take classes that are not as challenging, or it might cause you to procrastinate or have writer's block on an assignment because deep down psychologically, you're afraid of your performance. You're afraid of looking bad, looking dumb, feeling bad about yourself or other people thinking you're not that smart. You're not such a good student. So it might be a psychological avoidance strategy. Part of your mind is trying to basically avoid the assignment, avoid what could be a source of more pain or embarrassment or hurt to your self-esteem. So again, reflect on your past, and are there some things that caused you to feel this way, that hurt your self-esteem? Let's look at motivation. You might think, I just need more motivation. Well, yes and no. Actually, we need to discuss what motivation is psychologically, because there are healthy kinds of motivation and there are unhealthy kinds of motivation, which can be a factor here. We need to understand that there are actually different kinds of motivation. There are different components of these motivations. Now, in the language teaching field, they might use slightly different terms than what I'm using for some of these. I'm using the terms as they are used in psychology. So there's intrinsic or internal motivation, which means you actually want to do it. You have a personal interest and enjoyment and desire, and you want to do it. As you can imagine, that's probably going to be more successful because your study habits are going to be more successful. You're more interested in actually learning and understanding and growing. Now, extrinsic motivation, this is often the product of education that's based on stress, pressure. You have to study. You have to get an A+. You have to get good scores so you get into a good school and all that stuff. Extrinsic means it's outside of you. It's due to pressure and stress or other reasons other than enjoyment of the learning itself. And there's sort of middle ground called instrumental, which we'll get to later. Let's look at intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation means you do something that you have an interest in and you like it. It could be personal interest, intellectual interest, social interest, some kind of interest. You're interested in the thing itself, whether it's you're studying English or English writing or math or science or whatever. You have a sense of choice or autonomy, like it's your decision. I'm studying this because I want to study it. I want to learn it. You get a sense of growth, or at least your focus is on a sense of growth. I want to grow. I want to learn more. I really want to understand this. I want to achieve something, not grades, but actually deeper understanding, mastery. By achievement, I mean like mastery. You actually want to master the material, the concepts, the ideas. So you're focused more on the ideas and the concepts, not memorizing facts, but actually growing. So like you feel, I've mastered this, or I'm growing, I'm getting better at this. And so you feel better about yourself. This feeds your sense of self-esteem and your sense of efficacy. I can do this. That sense of I can do this. I can learn. I can improve. I can get better. And someday I'll be really good at this. For some people, also a sense of social connection. Maybe right now, it's a fun experience. You're learning with your classmates, like in your groups, and you're having fun. You're forming social connections in your class. Or later, by learning this language, I know I'm going to have like good cross-cultural connections and friendships. You're looking forward to that. As a result of intrinsic motivation, you are going to study more effectively. You're not doing the assignment just because you have to. You go beyond the assignment, and you actually are trying to learn outside of class. You're learning on your own, reading on it on your own. When you are doing the class and the homework assignments, you're more concerned with learning the ideas, the concepts, not just memorizing facts to get by, to do okay in the test, but you're actually interested in learning it. So outside of class, maybe your brain is thinking about this. Your brain is going over it. You're rehearsing mentally the concepts, the ideas, the information. Just on your own, you're thinking about it, and you seek out more information. You do more reading on it. If it's learning a language, you don't just do what's required for the class, but you go outside and you do extra reading in the language or exposing yourself to videos. Extra practice. Try to practice with somebody. Try to find somebody you can practice with and do it with. So your study habits are more successful. Extrinsic or external motivation is the opposite. It's outside of you. You don't have the sense of interest or choice. It's kind of pushed upon you. You have to study English. You have to learn English. You have to get a good English score so you can get into a good university, get a good job. It's not about internal satisfaction, internal growth, internal rewards, but more tangible or physical rewards, grades, scores, prestigious university, things like that. It's done out of a sense of stress or pressure or obligation. I don't want to study English. I just have to. I have to do it. Again, rewards, punishment. Avoiding punishment, getting rewards, tangible rewards. Perfectionism. Perfectionism is a particularly harmful kind of motivation. It's a very extrinsic motivation. You think it sounds good, but it's not. I should do an extra video on perfectionism because that's actually complicated. You try to be perfect. You're concerned with performance, what other people think of you, what you think of yourself. And it might be a strong motivator short term, but long term, it doesn't work that well. It's often connected with low self-efficacy or low self-esteem because you're trying to prove yourself. You're trying to prove yourself to other people or trying to prove yourself to your own self that, yeah, I'm good, I'm smart, I'm successful, I'm worthy of respect or love because I'm a good student. It's very extrinsic because it's about reward and punishment, looking good, performance. Now, it's possible sometimes to have a combination. You could be intrinsically motivated towards a particular topic. When it comes to the exams and assignments, you could be a perfectionist. That's possible. I was like that in college, by the way. But the perfectionism part in the long term can be harmful. More about that maybe in a later video. Now in between, there's a sort of, by the way, as you can imagine, extrinsic motivation leads to weaker study habits. Memorizing, rote memorizing, just memorizing stuff, cramming information into your brain just to do well on the exam. And afterwards you forget it. You're not focusing on really mastering the concepts, but just, doing whatever memorization or work you have to do to get good grades. You're not really necessarily driven to master the concepts, and you're not really rehearsing and doing extra work on your own to master the material. It's you do what you have to do to get by, to do the tests. So there's less focus on concept learning and more focus on memorizing facts, performance, exams, and stuff like that. Now there's this sort of middle ground in between where your motivation is kind of neutral, instrumental or utility motivation. So it means you don't really like, let's say English, for example, English learning or English writing. You don't necessarily really like it, but you don't dislike it. To you, it's a tool for something else, for doing something else that you like. So for example, maybe you're interested in business and learning business. And English is just a useful tool, whether it's speaking or writing or English in general. It's a useful tool for learning about business, which is what your passion really is, or science or politics or fashion or whatever you're into. It's a useful tool. And that's actually helpful too. It's a fairly healthy motivation too, because it can also help you study well because you're motivated by that thing that you really, really like. So it can be a successful motivator. Long-term solutions. It might be possible to maybe try to turn an extrinsic motivation into more of an instrumental motivation. For example, if you view writing assignments as a useful exercise, or learn to view writing assignments just as an exercise for learning about something else. It may depend on the class and how flexible the professor is and how well you can adapt the assignments to your interests or how flexible the assignments are. It might be possible. Personal story, this of course can apply to other things like, exercise. I used to really not like exercise, but when I lived in Seoul, I fell in love with the mountains around Seoul and liked hiking and tried to do more serious hiking, including like kind of light climbing, like climbing with your hands over the big rocks, bouldering. And at one point I realized, this is exhausting. I need to be in better shape because I really love this mountain hiking and rock climbing. So I started jogging. And so jogging was not something I liked, but I found it helpful for being better at the hiking that I did like. So I developed a neutral motivation towards jogging. And after that, I was able to start to sort of enjoy it because it made me feel better about myself. I felt better physically. And then I started doing gym exercise. If you want to exercise, don't start with gym exercise. Start with something fun like outdoor exercise. And then jogging or biking or gym exercise can then be kind of a utility, a neutral instrument for, what you really like. And over time, I developed actually an intrinsic motivation, sort of, towards even gym exercise because, I feel better about myself. I feel stronger, healthier. I've got muscles. I'm losing weight. Things like that. It helped me. So I developed, and still have, sort of an intrinsic motivation towards exercise that way. Maybe you can too, with some guidance. So, long-term strategies. Reflect on your feelings and your attitudes. Do you have some affective or motivational problems, motivation issues, poor efficacy or self-esteem? Think back on the sources of those blocks. Was it bad experiences you had with bad teachers? Too much pressure from school, from parents, from your friends, from people around you? Was it those? Were you a victim of social comparison? People comparing you? Because those things can really hurt your self-esteem or your efficacy toward specific learning tasks. Reflect on that. Were there things in the past that hurt you? What were they? At least to identify them can be a very helpful step in the recovery process. Joining a regular study group can be helpful because it can at least make the learning more fun. And so instead of, I hate this, at least, I'm having fun with my friends, my study group. Got some good friends here now. It's kind of a somewhat fun thing. You can develop maybe more positive associations with, let's say writing or whatever it is you're trying to do. Writing or your English class or your math class from a regular study group. That can make it more positive, more fun, more bearable. Finally, talk with someone. If you have some affective or psychological issues, talk with somebody about it, whether it's a good friend who understands you or even a qualified counselor. There's no shame in seeking counseling. If you had really bad experiences, talk to somebody that you can talk to, who can help you talk through this, to identify the sources of those in your past and how it made you feel. Not just identify, what happened, but how did you feel at the time? How did it change your motivation? How did it change your self-esteem? How did you feel about yourself as a result of that? Talk through that with somebody. That might be helpful. At least talk to yourself. In my case, I had some motivation issues in the past towards, say, math or other things due to past bad experiences. It can be helpful to identify them and work through them and find something positive. In my case, I had, again, another personal story, sort of this fear of math much of my life. In my PhD program, I had to take a lot of courses in statistics, and I thought, I'm not looking forward to this. It doesn't seem fun. But and my feelings about math hurt me first, and my first few math or statistics professors weren't very good. My fourth class, I had a really good professor who explained things well. I took her for a fifth class, and by the time I get to this fourth and fifth class in statistics, I started to see, this is helpful stuff. I could use these math methods and apply them to my research data that I've got, and I could do something cool that no one else has done before. So I started to like math, especially statistics at that point, because I found it useful and interesting for my own work. And then later I reflected on, what caused me to feel that way about math in my past. I realized when I was young in grade school, I had a math teacher who was really evil. She should not have been allowed in a classroom in front of kids without some psychological assessment or some psychological help. She discouraged me, scolded me, and made me feel bad about myself and about math. It's because of that, I think, that I had much of my life this fear of math and a dislike towards math. Now I like it. I like math. Because I had some good experiences and I was able to identify what was it in the past that caused me to have these motivational and efficacy problems towards math. Oh, it was that. So if I can overcome that, maybe you can too. You might need to talk to somebody, but by all means, reflect on yourself, find study habits that work for you, talk with someone if you need to, study with friends regularly, do whatever you need. So I wish you luck, and I hope you'll be healthy and be well in your mind and spirit. So until next time, good luck, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.